Hello and welcome to Moreness-Culture. Good morning, Syl.
Good morning, Beena. Good morning, yes, and hello and welcome everybody. And yes, yesterday I did exactly the same thing as I'm doing today. Not one
Okay.
single bit of difference. Yet yesterday it did not work, and I tried it about 5 times. Yeah,
Wow.
didn't work. Today it works.
It's all good.
Some days things work, other things not. Who knows why? Yeah, it's all good. It's working. It's all good. It's working. So I just want to share that, yesterday just didn't make any sense why it wouldn't work. There's no logical reason for it. I didn't change anything. Nothing changed. All the same. Did the same things. Yeah. Yeah. So
Sometimes we
it's
have
just the
to give
most amazing thing how
allowance,
that works.
allowance to Moreness to get into play. This is what sometimes
Yeah.
magic is. Yes,
Exactly.
of course. If it would
Exactly.
be really needed, you would keep doing that. This is what I assume that. Okay, yes, it is necessary. It is needed. Then you will
Yeah.
be well. Okay, yes, but we tried enough to satisfy our conscience that okay, yes, we made enough effort. And if it is not working, no regret, no stress, nothing. And this is how things are. You have to make your conscience clear. And this was the biggest resolution for me when I came to know about this thing that okay, keep doing things and having patience till when? That was my
Yeah.
question. Because and uh, I'm so grateful for that because I feel lucky. I don't know about other people that they do have these type of questions or not, but I had a lot and I still have a lot of questions like that. That things which okay, yes, everybody tell you to oh, okay, do these things, and follow these steps. But life is not as predictable as the textbook, as at least you get the idea from the
Exactly.
textbook. Life is not like that. So when you really get into the implementation part and really in the application part, then things are completely drastically different
Yes.
to what you have been
Yes.
learning, what you have been taught, what you have been shared. Life is different and it is so unpredictable. And this is what actually the beauty of life is, that you really get into this mindset. And when life becomes unpredictable and you get something completely out of your knowledge, out of your info, already get acquired information, then if you haven't learned the art of appropriateness, or at least if not learned the art, if you are not aware of the understanding or some sort of understanding of appropriateness, one can get easily, very easily get lost and get
Yes.
overwhelmed by, completely lost into that okay, I have no clue what to do. And this is what mostly happened with people. Of course it was happening with me when I was thinking about this question, doing and putting effort till when. And I was like okay, yes, everybody say that okay, you have to put some effort, but till when? And I was not getting, I never had this
Wow.
answer, never had this answer before. And then I asked her because I was coming with a bit of irritation and botheration with like because I was struggling with this question. And I
But just a
asked him,
bit, mind you, just a bit, not a lot, just a
yeah,
bit.
yes, just a bit. It was subtle, but I was like, okay, Sil, yes, you are also saying that. Okay, you have to keep doing this, keep doing that, and all that.
Uh,
But till when? Having patience till when? Having trust till when? Doing something till when? And that was my question. And then he says that till your conscience is clear. Oh my God! It was like duh, but it was never been a duh thing for me. No, never.
yeah.
It became duh when he actually made it duh for me. So anyway, this is my thought of the day. That sometimes you have full lavish meal in front of you, full of nutrition, yummy food, and you know that okay, you want to eat that. You have the desire also. You feel hungry also. You have a spoon. You are sitting there. No one is controlling you. No one is restricting you. But you don't know the skill. of holding a spoon in a way so you can put that food in your mouth.
Yeah.
That subtle, minute, trivial thing can and actually make your life miserable because you don't know that. And mostly people can teach you how to have your food. Oh, all you need is just to put it in your mouth. One of my friend was in my childhood was not aware how to swallow things.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes. And she was
Yeah.
really struggling. What to do with this? Like now, what to do with this? Because she was trained to get flavored food and liquid food mostly. And then she started eating solid food and she was like, what to do with that? So she was used to throw it out. That just
Fascinating.
one understanding that how to swallow. This just muscle training. We assume that it is innate, it is natural, but not for everyone. And it applies to, I'm saying that okay, now it applies to that, yes, this question that okay, till when? For most of you, it might be, duh, okay, but not for me. It was not duh, it was not easy, it was not obvious to me. And because we normally have this idea that people do understand, it's like duh, so we assume that everybody will understand, everybody will be able to do that, everybody will come to this automatically, innately. No, many times I have seen people do struggle with for just simple things. One of my mama's cousin, she used to have a problem with the walk, like okay, when she was walking, it was like a struggle and effort, very deliberate. And I was observing her. And then one day she was coming, and I said, "Adi, you need to change your shoes." And she said, I have many. And I said, "Yes, you have to change all of them." She says, "Why? They are all nice and good." I said, "They are nice and good, but not good for your walk. Because the shoes you are wearing, you have to hold them with your feet, actually, with your muscles in your feet. You have to hold them. And it's a struggle. Shoes needs to hold your feet." And that was the moment she was just sitting there for like for a few minutes, and then she says, "Wow, I never realized that." So she was wearing shoes which were like okay, good looking, expensive, or sometimes okay, different style and all that. But none of her shoes were actually really holding her feet. So when she has to walk, she have to hold her shoes with her feet. And you can see that many times. People just don't understand this thing. The shoes actually are very okay, important for your walk. Even if when they have straps and all buckles and everything, it's still, if it is not properly fit, it is not, if it is not supporting your arch very really well, then you have to hold it, and then you cannot walk properly. So why I'm sharing this, coming back to my thing, that I was not aware of that simple duh question, and we assume that people
Yeah.
will approve it, and it's a big deal. It's a big deal. So that was my thought of the day about
Very
this.
much so.
If it is innate to you, if it is there for you, not necessarily for the other person. And that other
Yeah.
person term
Yeah.
can be of course applied to your children, to your spouse, to your parents, to your friends, and everyone. Don't assume that okay, it is happening somewhere in the other part of the world. No, it can happen just right there where you are sitting, with your friend, with your spouse, with your anyone. So do pay attention
Oh,
to
yeah.
that. Don't assume things are dull. They are not. They
Yes.
are not.
Hello, hello, Mekyla. I love it. Mekyla
Hello.
says, "Hi, Moreness community." Capital M more, please. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Mekyla. I appreciate what you did,
Thank you,
and I
Mekyla.
love
I
this
love
Moreness
that.
community. Yes. Thank you so much.
I love that.
You're
I love
most
that.
welcome.
Yes, yes. Absolutely
And
wonderful.
Norma also.
Absolutely
I
wonderful.
hope Norma is here. So yes.
Oh, I made some comments. I made comments on YouTube and Instagram while I was listening to you. So
Wow. Oh, you're doing my job.
Yes, I'm on the ball today. On the ball today, and yeah, and I'll respond to Mekyla too.
Oh, that's really wonderful. So okay, today we are going to do as usual. We are doing capital R reading of Musashi's Book of Five Ring. Uh, the capital R reading process for the newcomers or whoever is going to join us today. Capital R reading is a process which comprises of more than just reading a book, more than just getting the story done, more than just come to know that what that person was saying in the book. It is about understanding the intent. It is about paying attention, doing the practice of paying attention. It is about practicing to hear, capital H, hear more than what has been said, what has been written in this book. And this is what capital R reading is. Once you will go through this process, your life will never be the same. It's a very cliche dialogue or a sentence we have nowadays on internet, but actually I can say that. I can really say that.
Beena,
Yes, yes.
please read Mekyla's comment.
Okay, okay. I need to go there for that. Going.
I wish you to comment. All right, I'll read it, and then, well, if you read it, you'll comment better if you read it. So yeah, yeah. Have a look. Have a look. Very, 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 very wonderful comment. Thank you, Mekyla. I want to share this. I want you to comment on it.
Okay, it is just taking a bit of time.
On Facebook. She commented on Facebook.
Oh, on Facebook, not in the group.
Well, she may be on my personal one. I don't know. All right, let me screen share, and then you can read it from the screen share because we got a screen
Okay,
share for the
yes,
sharing
yes, that
anyway.
that will be easy.
Yeah, let's do it that way. All right, can you see it yet?
It is coming, Syl. It is uploading. Yes. Okay, now I can.
Okay.
Okay, Mekyla Manat. She says, Beena, you're so right. Thing most difficult for me was how this world functioned. I wasn't able to attune myself. Since I was a bookworm from my childhood, I used to think world is like that as it is in books. Oh my God. Oh God. No.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's
Yes.
amusing now, but it's a serious thing then, and
No,
it's a
it is so
big, big
serious for
deal.
me also. Yes, Mekyla,
Yes.
exactly. Okay, I was not into much reading, but for me, people were really, really important. And I was really overwhelmed by the hypocrisy. I was because not because that it was bad, but it was challenging my understanding continuously. I was questioning my understanding that what I am understanding and what they are saying is not same. So I must be wrong. And this is where we learn to negate ourselves and understanding. It's a big deal for many people, as I'm now getting to know that as a
Wow.
children we were understanding a lot of things, especially energy and the intent, especially intent, but because we were taught to not say things, to be nice with everyone, so you
Yes.
cannot
To
say
negate
that. Okay,
ourselves.
exactly,
That's a very
that negation
powerful
is a big.
sentence you said.
Yes.
It says where we learnt to negate ourselves. Terrible.
And especially girls, because they were okay. I assume
Yeah.
that, okay, I'm assuming here that you also uh, we are especially a bit more pressed
Correct.
or pressured
Correct.
to be nice, to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
polite,
Yeah.
and that is something like I'm understanding that something is wrong, something is
Yeah.
not right, something is not matching, something is not connecting, but okay, no, you cannot say that. And we learn to numb ourselves, we learn to keep quiet, and we learn to shut our inner voice continuously that, okay, no, no. And this is how we actually slow down the process of learning and going big time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
your comment.
Yeah.
Yes, I
And read
understand.
the other one too, please, Beena.
Yes. So Sometimes things that come along easily, they are not that easy for some. Exactly, they are not.
Yes, yes.
They are
And
not.
and,
And I'm
and
so
this is a very
happy.
important thing to understand. Yes.
Yes. No, no, please say.
Oh, I want to say we have holes in our understanding, in our awareness, in our knowledge. Just that day you were sick at school, or your attention wandered when whoever said whatever. And so we have these holes, and they just somehow we'd never learned some things. And it's
Yes.
very, very important to not assume that we know the same things as everybody else and that everybody else all knows the same basic things. No, some basic things, some essential things are completely missing. Yeah, yeah.
Some
So,
people like me, they never paid attention to the class lessons and school lessons because they
yeah,
were quite boring for me.
yeah,
I was not paying
yeah,
attention. All I was doing is at the end of the year, just like 2 3 days, I go through my books and I said, okay, yes. So I was just getting the
yes,
passing thing because I was not interested at all. But what I
yeah,
was, I see a hope there as a mother of three young women, okay, young girls now. But of course, soon they will be women, young women. And as a mother of three individuals also, you are aware of this and you will let them be themselves. You will not actually, I hope that you are not going to teach them to negate themselves. So
yes,
you
yeah,
saying
yeah.
this, Mekyla, is a very special thing. You understanding this
It's very
thing
powerful,
is a very
very
special. It's
powerful,
very special for
very
me
powerful.
because it is
Yeah,
at least for sure three people, three individuals in future will not have this. So you are doing a lot.
exactly, exactly. It's very powerful, and it's good to be aware
Oh, your network is down or
it
mine? I
now.
don't know.
There's
Oh,
no
since
time limit on learning,
yes,
none. So when you learn doesn't matter. What matters is that you do learn. So just learn it. Don't get stressed if you don't know, and be aware that like in sharing like this is the magic of sharing. Oh, I'm not the only one who didn't know things that were like obvious to everybody else. No, you're not everybody. We see this all the time, especially in Way of Impeccability with the participants. Some really struggle with stuff that's very obvious. Ask Sher. She'll tell you in detail because she wrote about it and writes about it, how she struggled with things for a long time, and then eventually it clicked. Right? Oh, okay. Right? Because Sher's earnest, and Sher really wants to
yes,
know, and Sher shares about it, but everybody goes through the same process. Sher's just expresses it and vocal about it. So to those, I shared in Messenger. I don't mean to spam you, but like I thought, well, all right, there's the link, and I'm busy sharing it. I was sending it to somebody anyway, and your names were right there. So okay, I clicked on them also. I just figured it might be handy as just a reminder. Of course, if you can't come, just ignore. If you can't listen, just ignore. But I thought, well, I'll, if it's helpful for you, I'll do it in future. When I share it to group, I can just as well share it to you guys as well, right? It gives me that option to do it there. Right? Share it on Messenger. All right, let's get to Book of the
yes,
Void. But I love what you shared, Mekyla. You see how important participation is? It's magical.
yes,
You really shared something super critical. And Musashi is talking about things that are supposed to be obvious but aren't obvious, right? A lot of, not all the time, but mostly or every now and then. Yes, same thing. And some things are easy for some and difficult for others, but that doesn't mean we can't learn them. It does not mean we can't learn them. Mekyla, have you personally learned things that were difficult to you? I know the answer. Right? We'll wait for Mekyla to respond. But or respond when you can. Maybe sometimes people come and they have to go and stuff happens and children and work and who knows whatever. So, but I know that this is the case. At some point, Mekyla, yeah, exactly. She says, yeah, yeah, right. I mean, some things were seemed impossible, and you've learned that you were able to do what at one point seemed impossible, right, Mekyla? It's very powerful. So don't be put off by the fact that, well, it's difficult for me, it's easy for others. So what? It just means you've got to learn. Once learning, you learn how to learn, then those things aren't that difficult anymore, right? Or even impossible. And we can change. Things are impossible because we are in a certain way. Learn to be different, and then things change. And this is part of what the underlying message of Musashi is. He's saying, learn to be different, think different, act different, right? It's there all the time. All right. Will you read for us, please, Beena?
Okay, the book of the void. The book of the void. Okay.
Book four.
The Nito, the Nito-Ichi way of strategy is recorded in this the book of the void. What is called the spirit of the void is where there is nothing. It is not included in man's knowledge. Of course, the void is nothingness. By knowing things that exist, you can know that which does not exist. That is the void. People in this,
Oh, sorry. I forgot. My bad, my bad. One moment. Sorry. Okay, let me drag this window smaller. I forgot I used to do this. I don't know why I stopped doing it. You see, now
Mhm.
I can see the comments, and you can read, and I can reply, and you can continue reading. Continue reading,
Okay,
please.
okay. It is not included in men's knowledge. Of course, the void is nothingness. By knowing thing that exists, you can know that the which does not exist. That is the void. People in this world look at things mistakenly and think that what they do not understand must be the void. This is not the true void. It is bewilderment. In the way of a strategy, also, those who study as warriors think that whatever they cannot understand in their craft is the void. This is not the true void. To attain the way of a strategy as a warrior, you must study fully other martial arts and not deviate even a little from the way of the warrior. With your spirit settled, accumulate practice day by day and hour by hour. Polish the twofold spirit, heart, and mind, and sharpen the twofold gaze, perception, and sight. When your spirit is not in the least clouded, when the clouds of bewilderment clear away, there is the
Yeah.
true void. There is the true void. Okay. Until you realize the true way, whether in Buddhism or in common sense, you may think that things are correct and in order. However, if we look at things objectively, from the viewpoint of laws of the world, we see various doctrines departing from the true way. Know well the spirit, and with forthrightness as the foundation and the true spirit as the way, enact strategy broadly, correctly, and openly. Then you will come to think of things in a wide sense, and taking the void as the way, you will see the way as the void. In the void is virtue and no evil. Wisdom has existence. Principle has existence. The way has existence. The spirit is nothingness. The
That's it.
12th day
That's
of
that's the that's the fourth book right there, all in one
wow,
go.
wow. Okay.
That's it. The fourth book is one page. Now let's go through this again, right?
Yes.
Just I just was sharing there with Mekyla, right? So learn from Mekyla. Mekyla is a person. I don't want to say a regular person, because nobody in Moreness-Culture, nobody is a regular. Everybody's unique. Everybody's individual, right? It doesn't mean everybody's special. No, it just means you are you. End of story. There's no hierarchy. We're not looking to compare. Yeah, but at the same time, Mekyla isn't somebody who necessarily was exceptional in any particular way, other than exceptional in the desire to learn and the desire to grow, and exceptional in the desire to not accept nonsense in her life, even though she was consumed in it. Right. So this is wonderful. But many people have that. Yes. But the key point I'm making here is that Mekyla was in situations. Look what she said there, right? She was afraid of lab work, and then I did and enjoyed. Right? I tried to avoid it for 10 years. Can you imagine? Yes, unfortunately, I don't even need to imagine. I see this, I've seen it many, many times. But the beauty of it is, Mekyla, have started to enjoy, not only do lab work, but enjoy. You're not stuck in that where you are avoiding it. And be thankful for that. 10 years. Yeah, but you could go the rest of your life and avoid it. Yes. Likewise with other things. So again, doesn't matter when we learn, it matters that we do learn. Also, take note that you have changed, even if it's just in that one thing, right? Because this is a fact. Yes, Mekyla, I want to ask you this question. Have you changed even in just that one thing? Yeah. Have you changed, Mekyla? Since Mekyla is here with us, I'll wait for her answer. This is very important. We'll come back to Musashi's Book of the Void in a moment. Mekyla, have you changed, even if it's just in this one thing? It's very important that you say, I want your acknowledgement that you have changed. You'll see why in a moment. Mekyla had to go. Oh, she says, is that exactly? Or no, was that the previous comment? Okay. Well, I know Mekayla's changed. Mekyla probably had to go because it's taken a long time to get the answer. I was very keen for her to get the answer because I want to emphasize this, and her saying so is part of the emphasize because I'm going somewhere with this, right? So the key point is here. Well, I can ask you, Beena, have you changed? Is this a fact in your life that you have changed? It doesn't matter in which
Yes.
way, how much, how little, but just the fact that you have changed in some way or
Yes.
another. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now, if you have changed, does that mean, obviously, that you can change? Yes,
Exactly.
it does.
Yes.
It does. Oh, oh, yes. Mekyla says, yeah, in most wonderful way. So now, Mekyla and Beena, right? You have changed. This is a fact. It's also a fact, thus, that you can change. Two powerful facts. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Well, now that you put it this way, yes, it's a duh. Yes, it's obvious. I can change. I can. At some point, you didn't believe that you could change. Yes. Or at least you never even thought about it or assumed that, yes, maybe I can, but it's difficult. Now you know it's not the biggest deal in the world. Yes, you made some effort, you changed. You can change. This is an update in your psychology in your world. Now, of course, for both you and Beena, Mekyla and Beena, both of them, they've already gone through this, but I'm just repeating it for somebody potentially new to this. Yeah. Once you realize that you can change, you also realize that because I want to still change in the future, I will change. Duh. I have changed. I can change. I will change. You can put that up on your wall. Right? It's not this impossibility. And once we realize that change is simply a part of life, then life is much, much easier. Now we tackle and do things and we simply learn how to change in order to get things done. It's very simple, right? Appropriateness. Appropriateness in application. All right, so let's get to Musashi here. The Nito Ichi way of strategy is recorded in this book of the void. In this, the book of the void, right? So he's saying it's all here. All right, so now let's go into it. What is called the spirit of the void is where there is nothing. Void, nothing, it's kind of duh, right? It is not included in man's knowledge. Thus, it is that which is outside of what we typically know. What do we keep saying? The world does not work the way we think it does. There's lots that's outside of our knowing. And the void is very much outside of our knowing. Yes. It's outside of our typical comprehension. So it's something that's different, unusual, outside of what we know. We think we know it, but we don't know it, right? That kind of thing. Of course, the void is nothingness. It's very important. By knowing things that exist, you can know that which does not exist. That is the void. Now we're getting somewhere, right? So when we have everything that we know at Mekyla's point in time when she was afraid of doing lab work, everything she knew told her lab work was something to be afraid of. She couldn't do it, it would cause her problems, blah, blah, blah. Everything that she knew said be afraid of lab work. Yeah. So in the void, which was outside of what she knew, which was not what she knew, there was not being afraid of lab work. Not only not being afraid, but actually enjoying it. But it was outside of her world, was somewhere else, right? It didn't exist for her, thus it was in the void. See? Make sense, Beena? Make sense, Mekyla?
Yes.
This is very simple. It's very simple. When you understand the void to be essentially, I call what Musashi is calling the void, I call it moreness. And I think it's a better term. Yeah. Because yes, technically what we don't know is a
Yes.
nothingness to us now, but it isn't a nothingness inherently in itself. Yes. So therefore, I prefer the term moreness. So in Mekyla's understanding at that time, and I'm sorry to use as an example, Mekyla, but you share it so appropriately and it's so potent and it's so useful. So I'm utilizing it, right? It's a gift that you gave us. So at that time, Mekyla's understanding didn't include the moreness of not being afraid of it and enjoying it on top of that. It didn't include that. But see, when we understand it as void, we think it's not possible, it doesn't exist at all. But no, its void is relative, right? And from what Musashi is saying, this us connecting to the void is going beyond what we know. There's more to the void, but we'll get to this. We'll get to this, right? There's another aspect of it. Now, we've got to understand Musashi's a poor communicator. He's not a good writer. He's a sword fighter. Okay. So we're going to have to help him a little bit in this understanding, right? So now, his first definition is, right? Of course, the void is nothingness. By knowing things that exist, you can know that which does not exist. And that is the void, according to Musashi, right? By knowing what exists, you know what does not exist. Right? People in this world look at things mistakenly and think that what they do not understand must be the void. That is not the true void. It is bewilderment. Yes, right? That's ignorance is not the same as the void. Yes, the void is outside of your understanding of your capabilities, not necessarily your ignorance, but of what is available to understand. Now, it gets a bit trickier, but we'll get a bit more closer to it, coming to it a little bit later. In the way of strategy, also, those who study as warriors think that whatever they cannot understand is their craft. In their craft is the void. This is not the true void, right? So it's not just about the void isn't absence of learning because it already exists. So therefore, it's not just ignorance is not what you don't know. He's saying ignorance isn't knowledge that's not yet learned. He's saying that the void is that which is essentially unknowable in ordinary means. Right? A little different logic here. To attain the way of strategy as a warrior, you must study fully other martial arts and not deviate even a little from the way of the warrior. With your spirit settled, accumulate practice day by day and hour by hour. Polish the twofold spirit, heart, and mind, and sharpen the twofold gaze, perception, and sight. When your spirit is not in the least clouded, when the clouds of bewilderment clear away, there is the true void. All right, so now we're starting to get what the void is. In Way of Impeccability, that I'm calling it understanding, capital U, understanding. First, you start with awareness, ADU, right? It's very simple. Awareness, discernment, understanding. You start with awareness. You kind of realize, oh, I've got to learn stuff. I've got to know stuff. Then you start applying discernment and you look at the layers and look at the more, and you start to develop an abstract thinking. You start to have this overview knowledge. When you get to that, you start to get to understanding, capital U, understanding. And when you really, really understand something, you know it beyond words. Yes. I used the riding the bicycle example, very simple example. But once I really know how to ride a bicycle, I can lose my language ability. Yeah, I can have a bump on the head, an accident or something. This happens to somebody, right? I can have amnesia, but you get on a bicycle, you're gonna ride it. See, it doesn't depend on that your database that you've stored on your hard drive. It's become part of your operating system. See, you know it without knowing. That's the void. I don't have to have words in my head to ride the bicycle. Once I know it, I know it. See? Some things exist in the void. Now, you can, and I've done this, and I know people who've done it. You can directly go to riding a bicycle or doing things without getting any, you just do it. You just figure it out in the moment and you do it. You don't even sit there and calculate. You just go and you do, and that's it. End of story, right? You can go directly into the void. Yes, it is possible to do this. Now, of course, you have experience in going there from other things, but the key mechanism is that abstract understanding of how things work, and you can translate it from one to the other, and you don't even have to think. Yeah, this is what the void is: the ability to know without knowing. Don Juan, who also has the Way of the Warrior, talks about it very much. It's a long history tradition. It's very different to Musashi, but it's nonetheless it's very similar in many aspects. Also, Don Juan calls the void silent knowledge. It's knowing without thinking, knowing without words. However, this doesn't mean words are bad. No, you need words to get you there, and then you can let go of them. It's like when you're on a plane and there's this big cliff, and you need to get up to the next plane, right? I try not to use higher levels because it kind of has a hierarchic connotation. But the example serves here. How do I get there? I need a ladder or something. Yeah, well, just let's say we use a ladder. When I get and I've used the ladder to get to the next plane up there, right? Or do I still need the ladder? No, I don't. Words are a ladder to get to that plane of being able to apply without thinking, without talking. Yes, directly doing. So when we understand this and silent knowledge, it's not about just be silent and you'll have knowledge. No, it is an endpoint that comes from thinking appropriately, thinking thoroughly, thinking effectively, thinking efficiently, thinking from multiple perspectives, thinking things through to the end. Then you start to get to capital U understanding, knowing directly, which I prefer to say to silent knowledge, because silent has this connotation of don't talk. You need to talk in order to get there, but to get to, that's why I prefer the term knowing directly. Yes. When you know things directly, you have capital U understanding, and you don't need to think about it. You can just do, you can apply. So capital U understanding is directly connected to capital A application. When you get to really, really apply, you can do so directly without words, like when it comes to riding the bicycle. And we have many examples of things that we do. I don't have to think about it. In my whole daily life is filled with things. Take walking. Walking is a complicated act. It's not a simple thing. Ask any robotics engineer. They'll tell you that to get things to walk bipedally is exceptionally difficult. Yeah, because walking is an act of continually losing balance and regaining balance. It's a really fantastic thing. Yes, we're basically falling. It's controlled falling, our walking, and really fantastic. But we do it without thinking. Yes. However, I have done this exercise. Go and walk deliberately, and suddenly it changes. I mean, literally, right now, just walk around your room deliberately, and you'll see, oh, now you start to think about it, it changes. But learning to walk deliberately is very, very powerful. Very, very powerful skill. Okay. Now we're starting to understand what the void is. And I prefer to call it direct knowing. Yes, knowing without knowing, you could call it too. But direct knowing is probably the best term for me. Yeah. Yes. Does that make sense, Beena? Before I read more?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. To attain the way of strategy as a warrior, you must study fully other martial arts and not deviate even a little from the way of the warrior. With your spirit settled, accumulate practice day by day and hour by hour. Polish the twofold spirit. should be a comma there, twofold spirit or semicolon, heart and mind, and sharpen the twofold gaze, perception, and sight. This is discernment in action. Yes, this discernment. You're not just heart, you're not just mind, you're more than that. Your heart, mind, body, soul, energy. You're a lot of things. Yes, not just two. And perception and sight. Yes, perception really, really critical. This is discernment to see past. This is thinking things through to the end. This is perceiving from multiple perspectives, right? You start to perceive. You don't just see one angle, you see a lot. When you see a lot of angles, you start to perceive, right? Perceive is knowing more than you can directly see or hear, right? Not just sight, but it's hearing, knowing, feeling, all of this, right? Got to go more. Put all the factors together. There's a greater knowing that comes from the parts. When you put the parts together, you get something that's bigger than the sum of the parts. Yeah? Like when I look through all the windows of a house, I can figure out the house plan if I look through enough windows. Yes, I've got one angle, one angle, one angle. I've got the view of the bedroom. I've got the view of the kitchen. I've got the view of the living room. But what about the bathrooms that were hidden there or the storerooms? But when I put it all together, I can actually calculate it all. So I get something more than what was obvious from the parts. I can create something extra. Yeah, this is perception. When you're creating more from taking it all in together. Very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. When your spirit is not in the least clouded, when the clouds of bewilderment clear, thus there is the true void. And again, when we have direct knowledge, capital U, understanding, we really now make sense. This term void is very tricky for our brains to comprehend. We have to have a something. We struggle to comprehend a nothing. And the void, yes, it is a something, but also in the way Musashi uses a nothing. Direct knowledge, capital U, understanding, much, much easier to grasp. So this is just being skilled with the tools at our disposal, knowing our psychology, knowing how we work. Have something that you can utilize. And direct knowing, capital U, understanding. Now, this, when your spirit is not in the least clouded, why is the core program of the Moreness-Project Way of Impeccability? Because that's precisely what Way of Impeccability does. Cleans up your spirit. That's it. Yeah. You start to pursue, starts with clarity of intent. You know why you're doing what you're doing. It's clarity of intent. When you know your intent, which is not your hopes, your wishes, your desires, and goals and ambitions. No, intent is a very different thing. When you set this, you right away, that's it. Spirit cleared. Yeah. It's a very, very powerful way of clearing your spirit. I mean, there's a lot to clarity of intent. It's module 1, session 1, right? That's it. Clarity of intent. It's how Way of Impeccability starts. But this is why. Yeah, you need to be clear. Otherwise, you don't know what's going on. And the clouds of bewilderment are all around you, right? And you can ask Mekyla how she was in a bewilderment state at one point. She told you there. She said she was afraid of lab work, something she now enjoys. Yeah. Why? Because her spirit wasn't clear. Very simple. Yeah? Didn't have clarity of intent. And had all sorts of beliefs and bubbles. We have to be really, really careful of the bewilderment by belief. BBB. Bewilderment by belief. We get this. Yes. Matter of fact, I need to add that into my dictionary of power. I never said it in that exact way before. Right, Beena? That's a cool,
Yes.
that's a cool, that's a cool term, right?
Yes.
Bewilderment by, and boy, is this something that really bites us. This bewilderment by belief. It is absolutely terrible. It really, really, really bites us. Yes, we don't even challenge our beliefs because we've been taught to be obedient, because we've been taught to be willing to do things and serve others and also conform and all this. To whose benefit? Not to yours. Yeah. Do things that benefit you. Don't just buy into beliefs because they're there, because you should do them, supposed to, must, etc. No, believe because you want to. Believe because you want to, not because you've been told to, right? Develop some true independence. Yeah. All right, let's continue here with what Musashi says. Until you realize the true way, capital W way, whether in Buddhism or in common sense. Now, I was to pause here. I know it's the sentence isn't finished, but it's really important, right? Way, and he says whether in Buddhism or in common sense. I mention this because Buddhism is very powerful. Now, Buddhism in its way that it is in India is very different to Buddhism in China, and furthermore, even Buddhism in Japan. Yeah, I mean, they have their own local variations, and Musashi's writing in Japan. Now, Buddhism been around a long time. By the time Musashi's writing this, Buddhism's been around for 2,000 years. 2,000, yeah, long time. So it's an old thing, but it moved, it varied, and it got into Japan. When he's talking Buddhism, it's more Zen Buddhism, yes, and that's more predominant in Japan, and there are lots of variations within it, and connected to the spirit religion of or understanding Shinto, which all connected, right? But still, he mentions Buddhism, which is very interesting because we tend to think of Buddhism as a religion, right? I mean, if you look it up, it's a religion. But really, Buddhism, in essence, when it started as Buddha taught it, it's a philosophy, not a religion. There's no worship in original Buddhism. And the whole idea is completely crazy. And particularly in Japan with Zen Buddhism, where that, got to really be a big deal, or significant. There's no worship. It's not a religion. It's a philosophy. Yeah, completely and utterly. So when Musashi uses the term Buddhism, in he's more than likely referring to it as a philosophy, which is what it is. This whole idea of it being a religion and praying to the Buddha, it's complete nonsense. Sorry, Buddhists, I know you do it, but it makes no sense whatsoever according to what Buddha taught. It's just this desire that people have. They want to pray to some powerful thing. It's really comes from the feudal system where you go and petition the Lord to get some favor. Yeah, and the Lord controls you by handing out these favors, keeping them scarce, making them valuable. I mean, really, seriously, it's just manipulation, right? But that logic is so deeply in our DNA, we apply it to things that it's not appropriate. And praying to a Buddha, not appropriate. He's trying to say, you got to learn to be your own Buddha. That's what Buddhism means. Buddha is a title, it's not his name. Anybody can become a Buddha. Okay, so very important to understand here. But still, the true way, though, whether it is Buddhism or in common sense, way of impeccability is the way, the capital W way of common sense. Yes, it's the obvious. That's my job, is to make the obvious obvious. When you do this, you start to see this. Your life gets clear. Your spirit gets clear. And until you realize the true way, whether in Buddhism or in common sense, you may think that things are correct and in order. What do we keep saying, Beena? The world does not work the way we think it does. When you think that things are correct and in order, well, typically you're in a bubble. Sorry. However, Musashi says, don't be in that bubble. If we look at things objectively from the viewpoint of laws of the world, we see various doctrines departing from the true way. Right? So there is laws of the world I would put into inverted commas if I was the translator, yeah, or at least if I was Musashi's editor, because and the same thing objectively. We think we're looking at things objectively according to, from the viewpoint of the laws of the world, but it's a distortion. You're looking inside a bubble, and yes, the objectivity inside the bubble isn't actual objectivity, right? So be careful, and be aware that we pretty much are always in a bubble in some way. Yeah. Know well the spirit, and with forthrightness as the foundation, and the true spirit as the way, enact strategy broadly, correctly, and openly. And this is what we really are making the point to do in Way of Impeccability. We provide the tools. For instance, just having clarity of intent, having a self-conception that's not limiting, that's not defining, having this dictionary of power, which gives you this foundational tool. Yes, you're not getting stuck in beliefs. You're not, which is this idea of how the world works, just a belief. Yeah. When we have tools, I'm focused on the tools. I'm not focused on belief. I'm focused on application, on doing. Yes. And then I get to build things which are real. Yes. And not false, not cloudy. Yes. That's the forthrightness. In other words, forthrightness, capital H, honesty. It is foundational, critical, essential to way of impeccability, to living. Right? We live in a world where there's so much nonsense, so much BS, and we accept it, but it's BS. But if we are truly honest, we say, but wait a second, this doesn't make sense. But we tend to throw that out. We get taught as children to negate ourselves, as Beena so profoundly put it. Yes. And how do we negate ourselves? By buying into being essentially dishonest with ourselves. We say, this doesn't make sense to me. Oh, it must be me that's wrong. It doesn't make any less sense when it's you decide that you, the one who's wrong, and they must be right. It still doesn't make sense. Yeah. So we're making a way of kind of fitting ourselves to the world. Yeah. And that doesn't work. You end up negating yourself. So don't do that, right? Follow the true way. Be truly, truly, truly honest, and you come to a different place. Yeah, the world is messed up, but we it takes kind of a bit of a time to learn that, unfortunately. Right? So enact strategy broadly, correctly, and openly. That's what way of impeccability is. It is a profound strategy of living. Now, Musashi uses strategy in general when he's talking about, he's talking about sword fighting, but yeah, he's talking about it in a more abstract, more greater way. He's progressed a little bit. In his writing, he's now come to an abstract overview perspective. Yes. He's not talking about
Yes.
sword fighting directly. And so there's some movement here, some progression from Musashi, right? And this is very, very powerful. Right. So enact strategy broadly, correctly, and openly. Very important. Then you will come to think of things in a wide sense, and taking the void as the way, you will see the way as void. Right. And now, when we said void, capital U understanding, direct knowledge. Now let's read that and put those terms in there. Then you will come to think of things in a wide sense, overview perspective, bigger picture, right? That overview perspective, abstract understanding, it is core and essential. Your entire dictionary of power is all these abstract conceptions, right? This overview thinking, right? So when we see things in a wide sense, when we see things from overview perspective, from universal perspective, taking direct knowing as the way, you will see the way as direct knowledge, direct knowledge. Yeah? See? Knowing without knowing. So now when we substitute that for void, it starts to make a lot more sense, right? And this void is that bigger picture understanding, understanding directly, capital U understanding. In the void is virtue and no evil. Let's get back to way of impeccability. Yes, virtue is fairly subjective. Impeccability is not. Right? Impeccability is best use of energy. Your best use of energy is to be virtuous as appropriate, always as appropriate. Yeah. Sometimes a particular virtue might not be appropriate, and you got to do something else. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just saying it happens. Yes. When you get stuck in doing things always in a particular way, it becomes problematic when you need to be appropriate. Yes, it's not always appropriate. Sometimes, a kindness can make things worse rather than better. I'm being kind to somebody, helping them do things which they really should learn to learn by themselves. What do? I entrench this behavior of theirs, which is a lack of ability. Yes. I'm not being kind. I'm being very unkind, actually, in the bigger picture. Yes. I'm helping you to condone your inefficiency, your ineffectiveness, your helplessness. Right. So my kindness makes it worse. It doesn't make it better. Yeah? It's like just giving people food when they don't have it. Teach them how to grow food. It's this old age problem, right? They can become dependent on your food and not know how to take care of themselves. How is this a kindness? No. As a temporary measure, yes, you can give them food while they learn to grow their own food while they're waiting for the crops to mature. Sure, that's kindness. But giving it to them all the time in lieu of them learning for themselves, that's not kindness. That's devastatingly horrible, right? So appropriateness, understand appropriateness, right? Then you will come to think of things in a wide sense, overview perspective, think things all the way to the end. Perspective shift to multiple perspectives. You see the bigger picture. Very, very important. Overview perspective, universal perspective, right? And then taking the void as the way, you will see the way as void. So you'll see the way as capital U, understanding. And when you capital, you understand that there's a need for application. You understand that short term you can have a benefit like the kindness of giving food, but longer term, this is a terrible thing. See? You see the bigger picture. This is absolutely the way overview perspective, right? You can think of void as thinking of things from the universe's perspective, and also direct knowing. In the void is virtue and no evil. Wisdom has existence. Principle has existence. And the way has existence. Spirit is nothingness, right? This is very powerful. The spirit is nothingness. When we are looking to be appropriate, right? And when we have appropriateness as the goal, our spirit is geared towards being able to always be appropriate no matter what. Now, when he says nothingness, when you think of appropriateness as something specific to do, then it's not appropriateness. That's a specific thing. Appropriateness has no definition because it always is changing. It depends. It varies, depends on goal, context, situation, everything, right? So appropriateness, you can't ever say it's a specific thing is appropriate, like kindness. And you can't say kindness is always appropriate because it isn't, as I just explained. See, so appropriateness has no specific definition and therefore it is nothingness. So now, when we understand this and we get really to, instead of saying direct knowledge or capital U understanding as a substitute for void, let's put appropriateness in there. Holy moly. Now it all changed. Right, Beena? Yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Taking appropriateness as the way, you will see the way as appropriateness. Holy moly, holy moly, holy moly. Now it makes sense. Now it makes sense. Appropriateness cannot be defined because we don't know how the world works. What is appropriate according to my understanding now, when my understanding of the world expands and I discover, oh, well, then appropriateness also changes. Yeah. So appropriateness always is fluid and flexible, always changing. You can never, ever have a specificness to appropriateness. And trying to do this is pure foolishness, as we know from the term proper. Yes? Proper is the
Yes.
attempt to specify appropriateness. Just foolishness, as we know now. Yes, back in the day, though, proper was what people lived by. Oh my God, to not be proper was a calamity and an end of the world. I mean, really, seriously so, right? But we realized bubble. They were in a bubble trying to pin down and define and restrict appropriateness, trying to specify it. No, appropriateness is nothingness. Yeah. So this is it. The way as existence, spirit is appropriateness, which is a nothingness, yet it's also everything. Now everything makes sense. And that's why Way of Impeccability, the Moreness-Project, everything is built on the philosophy of appropriateness. And the specific application of that, you get the A plus philosophy, which gives you the steps to get to appropriateness, right? The A plus philosophy is all the individual components: awareness, attunement, alignment, appreciation, adventure, right? Just to mention a few A terms. Those are all component elements that enable you to be appropriate. Yes, enable you to be appropriate. They're tools. Yes, no tool in the toolbox in itself is enough. Okay, a knife comes close, but a knife makes a poor hammer. Yeah, see, a knife isn't
Yes.
always a screwdriver. It can be, but still, see, just saying, yes. When you understand tools, you understand like inappropriateness. And appropriateness is the overall ability to use your tools as appropriate. But you need to have a good toolbox. Yeah, because if you only have a few tools, it becomes difficult. You can force the knife to be a screwdriver, but it doesn't always work. It's sort of kind of, it's not ideal and messes up your knife typically. Yeah, and so on and so forth.
Yes.
So it's very important to understand this. Yeah, tools, tools, tools. The more tools you have, the more able you are, and the easier it is for you to be appropriate. And that's it. And once we develop this tool of being able to develop the tool needed in the moment, yeah, instead of having a toolbox with specific tools, I have a tool making machine. Wow. That's what way of impeccability is. Yeah. It's not just a
Yes.
toolbox, it's a tool making machine to create the tool as appropriate. But now we understand Musashi a little better when he talks about the void. Yes?
Yes.
Makes sense?
Yes. It's
My
good.
apologies, Musashi, if I did not understand exactly. However, I feel that this interpretation of what you're saying has value. It's applicable. It's useful, and that's what matters. At the end of the day, this is what matters: usefulness. Yes, and when you apply appropriateness, and you go back and we apply it specifically to sword fighting, every single time when he says you must practice this, you must understand this, you must research this, yeah, he's saying do it differently. He is saying learn to be appropriate. Strategy is all about that. Yes, and to for instance, the stances, the way you hold, the movement, it's always comes down to simplify. Well, learn to be appropriate. Appropriate isn't just doing it in this particular way, like where the eyes go, on the hands, on the face, on the feet. No, be appropriate, because any one of those is only a part of the greater whole. Learn to see everything as appropriate. There you go. All right, cool. So understand your contextual awareness, expand your understanding, understand your ability to understand, your ability to discern, your ability to implement, and you get to the ability to be appropriate. The greater your awareness, the greater your discernment, the greater your understanding, the greater your ability to be appropriate. There comes a time when you don't even have to think consciously anymore. It just becomes innate, and you can automatically just be appropriate. Yeah, you've gotten to the void. See,
Yes.
make sense?
Absolutely.
Mekyla, does all this make sense? Are you still here? Sure. If you're listening, does it make sense? I know you're busy. You might not be able to comment, but maybe next time. I hope so. I hope so. And this is the value of Musashi, is this particular chapter. All right, the void is a tricky concept, but when we understand it in the context of appropriateness, direct knowledge, understanding, suddenly it all falls into place and we get to more. Yes, now we see moreness, yeah? Moreness culture. Now we have these tools which bring us to moreness. Suddenly we've gotten tremendous moreness out of this chapter, which otherwise may be a bit confounding. Yes.
Yes.
Any comments, Beena?
I just love this because this whole chapter, it's a very small chapter. And I'm glad that it is small because you are paying attention. It
Oh,
makes you
oh,
more
oh.
attentive towards that. Uh, the void, of course, we have a completely different understanding of void in way of impeccability. And what actually he's saying by using the term void is moreness, as you mentioned already. And this moreness concept, when you get out of this thing, because he is trying to remedy the philosophy of opposite and also that the mindset of just having opposites of things. He says that, okay, oh, when you have this, and then you have, we assume that it is going to be just the opposite of white is black. But he says no, it's a void, like a nothingness and more and a moreness. This is something wonderful. Okay, it is sorry again, it is poorly explained, but we, because we have this understanding, we are practicing capital R reading, so we can understand the intent for that, and that is good. That is really huge. One more
Oh,
thing I just want
oh.
to add about this thing, that yesterday I was just I listened to someone who was saying that, okay, in my childhood, uh, I was playing with kids in the ground, and one of uh, my friend, he was not a known friend, but he was just came, like a fellow. He came to me and asked, look at that bird. A bird was sitting on a tree. And he asked me that, okay, what is that bird? What's the name of this bird? Actually, he says, what is that bird? And he says, I don't know. So that young boy, he just uh, kind of like a boasting himself and saying that, oh, this is the name, whatever the name was, XYZ of that bird. And then he says, your father teach you nothing. And the young boy at that time, he says that this is like, this is the bird. In English, we say this is that XYZ. In Japanese, they say this is whatever in Japanese. And then he says in Chinese, in Italian, in Spanish. What actually all these things told you about that bird? Nothing.
Yeah.
It just told you about those people, not that bird. Get rid of this.
Yes.
Get rid of this idea and try to understand the bird now. And
Oh, excuse
this
me.
is what
Wonderful, Bean. Most wonderful.
the perspective shifting, and also this
Exactly.
is what the capital R reading is for me.
Yes.
We are not
Yes.
reading the words what he is saying. We are
Correct.
trying to
Reading the
understand
meaning.
what is the value in it, what really the
Yes.
intent behind that. And this is what capital R
Exactly.
reading and capital U understanding for me. From way of
Precisely.
impeccability, these concepts are really, really life transformative,
Yes.
like any
Yes.
other concept and perception from that. But this one is the most wonderful right now because in a fun way. I don't know any other way of doing things where you can actually transform your life and transform yourself while having fun. This is fun for me at least to read, but not reading words, reading the intent,
Reading understanding, reading intent,
reading
reading
understanding.
perception, reading knowing, reading value, reading
Exactly,
usefulness. Yes.
exactly. Because if you will read the
Reading
words,
context.
of course, you
Yeah.
will not
Yeah.
understand what Musashi was, who he
Yeah.
was, and
Yeah.
what he was
Yeah.
trying to share. So you will not get the value. Exactly as the
Exactly.
boy who was just flaunting that okay, oh my father told me and taught me what is the name of this bird. That
Yes.
young boy who at that age he says that, but my father told me that the name of the bird is going to tell you nothing about that bird, but people. Because in America there is a different name. In Britain it's a different name. In China it's a different name. In Japanese, what it is going to tell you about? Those people, not the bird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Very,
capital
very
R
powerful,
the
Bina. Very,
process
very powerful.
of
Beautiful
understanding.
story. Beautiful story.
Yes.
I want to add a few more things. Actually,
Yes,
I
please.
counted the books. I missed my count. That was book five, Bina, not book
Oh
four.
wow.
Oh wow, yes. Because look, see, I don't know if this is a picture of the Buddha or a picture of Musashi. I've never seen a bearded Buddha, so I'm assuming this might be a self-portrait of Musashi later in life. I don't expect this to be a picture of him in his sword fighting prime, but you never know. So you see, it's the end. That's it.
Wow.
Doesn't say the end,
Wow.
but yeah, it's the end. So we unexpectedly come to the end. But I want to emphasize something here. Yes.
Yes.
So Musashi, this book of the five rings, it's a classic. We have to be absolutely, utterly, utterly careful of not assuming because a book is a classic that it is the final word.
Yes.
It's not. Musashi also talks about this many times. You've got this teaching and that teaching, and they all, according to those schools, to them, they are the final word on everything. But Musashi says, well, they're just wrong. They don't know anything. They're mistaken. Yeah, because they're in a bubble. And also look at Musashi. He's written a wonderful book. However, he's not a good writer. He doesn't have the language. Now, yes, part of it may be the translation, but either way, yes, there are since Musashi's time, our understanding, our awareness has evolved. We've evolved as a species. We don't even realize we've evolved. However, treating Musashi as the final word is a big, big mistake, because now you end up deliberately regressing to the understanding of that time. At least this progression of understanding. Musashi's pushing understanding further. Yes, but don't assume that this is the end path. No, it's not. And anybody worth their salt, in who's an expert, who is a professional, will tell you there's more. There's always more. Just because I've laid out a great Moreness and I've furthered the understanding of sword fighting and strategy in a fantastic way, doesn't mean there's not more, right? That Musashi will be the first one to tell thee there's always more. And Don Juan, who also has Way of the Warrior, says it specifically. He says a warrior must take what has been shown and take it further. He specifically says that part of your obligation is to take it further. And also, he says you must take what you've been shown and apply it and use it, put it into practice, right? Very, very powerful conceptions. So, this is to me, before I knew Don Juan, before I knew Musashi, this was something that was just in my bones, to take things further, right? To not treat such things that I read as the end point. Yes, because, well, if you just think a little bit about it, I had the tendency to think further, and not just think further, but at age 11, I came to understand that thinking things through to the end was essential, because at age 11, I thought very deeply about death. And the takeaway that came, the change in my life from that thinking, was that time is precious. From time is precious, right? I came to think about things as I was reading, and then I would read something else, and basically the same essential point, I'd be thinking it through again. And I said, no, but I'm wasting my time. I already thought about this the other day, or other week or month or whenever, and now I'm repeating that thinking. Why? Because I didn't finish it. I have to kind of start all over again. So then I said, it's a waste of my time. Time is precious, cannot waste time. So that's how I came to, well, oh, well, I have to think it all the way through to the end, resolve it, and then I don't have to repeat the thinking. Yes, it was temporarily laziness. I don't want to think it all the way through the term. Okay, I'll do it next time, whatever. So no, it was an efficient use of energy. So impeccability. So in other words, I learned this thinking through to the end as a result of not wanting to waste my time to have to rethink things all the time. And then once I started thinking things through to the end, and I realized how much difference that made, you can't go back. Now I started thinking things through to the end on everything. And of course, we end up with having Way-of-Impeccability Moreness-Project. And I take Musashi, think him through to the end, there's more, there's extra. Don Juan, think it through to the end, there's more, there's extra, right? Go further, go further. And that is what I bring to things through Way-of-Impeccability and Moreness-Project, right? Thinking things through to the end. I've made this effort. Doesn't make me any particular genius, just makes me somewhat diligent. That's all. And thorough, especially thorough. Yes. So all of what I'm sharing comes as a result of this, taking what's presented and taking it further, taking it as far as the end that I can see. Now that end is, again, it's fluid and flexible, right? But as far as I know, take it to the end. Incredibly, incredibly, incredibly valuable. Yes. So thank you, Musashi. This is great. Great. Which brings us to our next topic. What are we going to do next? Do we want
We will
to
see.
discuss more to Musashi tomorrow? Do a wrap up overview of everything, or do we
We
want
will
to just
see. We
move
will
on?
see. Maybe it is. Maybe we will just start something new, unexpected, unusual. We will see
All
what we
right.
are going to do.
Okay. Okay.
And also that, okay, because you have been suggesting that after that we are going to read another Japanese, I guess, writer's book, but we will see what we are going to do.
Hang on. Say again. You're a little soft, Beena. Say what you just said again, please.
You were suggesting that we might actually read another Japanese writer. I don't
No,
know the
not
name.
Japanese. Chinese in this
Chinese,
case.
okay.
You meant
But we will see.
Sun Tzu,
I
the
might
the
just
art of war.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But we will
It
see. I might
yeah.
come with something completely different,
All right, all
a
right.
fun thing,
So
and we will bring
so
across.
Sun Tzu is a Chinese writer, but it's the book the Art of War is alongside Musashi's book is very prominent in Japan in Japanese
Okay,
corporate culture, right?
okay.
Then we can also go and read Lao Tzu, yeah, which is
Yes,
about Taoism, which is very influential in China, exceedingly so, and also
yes.
in Japan. Yeah,
Okay.
not as much, but I mean, he mentions this way. Taoism is called the way, right? So
Yes.
Musashi, and he references Lao Tzu, right, as the way of virtue. So it's something that Musashi is aware of. But they all kind of work together. If you want to complete your reading at least of the basics of Chinese, Japanese, right? That culture, right? Just a basic starting point. You have to include Confucius as well. So you kind of got the big four, right? Well, in Japan, I mean, sorry, in China, it's Confucius and Lao Tzu. Those are like the two principal ones that have a huge influence. Lao Tzu more, Sun Tzu, Art of War, more specialized in strategy. But if we take Musashi and you want to really understand Musashi, you need to have all three of those others: Confucius and Lao Tzu and Sun Tzu. Now, it doesn't mention Confucius very much, but if you were to read Confucius, you're going to see how Confucianism, which you could basically say is the art of being a bureaucrat, how Musashi is kind of saying, be careful of this. Yes, don't get stuck into being a narrow bureaucrat, be a broad picture bureaucrat, right? So, very, very interesting when
We
you
will
see
see.
that.
We will see. We will
But
see
again,
what you are going to do.
I don't particularly think that it's necessary. We can go to Musashi and take, because Musashi is kind of the end point of those other three, because they all came long before Musashi, so way long before, right?
I Okay,
Yeah,
I personally want to do something different than
correct.
completely
Me
different
too.
than
I
or
agree.
opposite
I agree. I agree.
to the
I agree.
sword and fighting and all
Yeah,
fighting and war
yeah.
and
I
all
agree.
that.
I agree. I agree.
So maybe I
Well,
will
that
come up with
so
something.
Lao Tzu, the way of virtue, has nothing to do with fighting. Absolutely
We will
nothing.
see. We will
This
see.
is like, where spiritualism, what we think of as spiritualism today, modern spiritualism, Taoism is the root and the start. That was the way back when, right? And many people struggle with it, with because it's very unspecific. It's kind of, it was the woo woo back in the day, and still somewhat woo woo to a lot of people. Yeah? So it may be very
Okay.
valuable to do Lao Tzu. It's completely the
Yes.
opposite of Musashi, even though
We'll
it's
see.
influential on Musashi. Yeah,
We'll see. We'll see.
yeah,
Okay, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you are watching us recorded, please do like, subscribe, and make a comment.
yeah,
Please
yeah,
do comment
yeah,
on our
yeah,
live also
yeah,
videos
yeah,
on
yeah.
YouTube and on Instagram.
I, I
Yes.
just had an idea, Beena, something that we might want to consider. Just, I just want to throw it out there. Maybe somebody will give some feedback and say, "Oh, that would be interesting." Is that book by Christmas Humphreys called "The Buddhist Text"? Fascinating stuff.
Okay. Okay. We'll see. We'll see.
All
Yes.
right, we'll
So
see. We'll see.
please
We'll
do
see.
that
As
because by
appropriate
doing
says
so, you are
Beena, we
going
don't know yet. We'll let it
exactly. So
come.
by Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So by doing
So,
so, you are going to train your online algorithm, which is so
yes.
valuable and important right now, because ultimately your online algorithm is going to affect in many ways your life algorithm. Please do pay attention to what you are feeding to your mind. Nutrition is not limited, or diet is not limited to your food only. It is food for thought also. So what you want
Oh,
to see more in your life, please do click like or subscribe, because this is how you are providing data to the algorithm, that and by
yes.
providing precise data, what you really
Yes.
want and what you want to share with
Yes.
the future generation is important now. Make choices, deliberate choices now to create a moreness culture. Thank you so much, and we will see you guys tomorrow, same time. Bye for
Oh,
now.
I just want to say hello real quick to Ayman and Dushka and Lubna. Yes.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
three
Thank you so much for
wonderful
joining us.
angels that have come and joined us, and always happy that you're here. It matters. It matters to me, and I do know them somewhat, a little bit, and I do know they are most magical angels. So I'm always
Okay.
thrilled that you're here. Always thrilled that you're
Okay.
here. All right. Bye bye, everybody. Bye bye. See you tomorrow. Bye
Bye
bye.
for
Bye
now.
bye. Bye
See
bye.
you tomorrow.
Bye bye. And live.